Welcome to BERYL ELITES. How important is physical materials versus conceptual ideas in your work?
Because I'm a sailor and I'm a wild man out on the sea and I'm tuning into the ocean in my boat, and I've always been painting. So when I ran out of artist materials when I was young and started sailing, I realized I could paint on old sails. And then the old sails spoke to me, and the roughness in the old sail that I got from an old sailboat, I could feel the hands of the men who were at sea patching this sail and sewing on a patch. And different men had different styles, and sometimes they were in a hurry, they made big stitches, and sometimes someone made a very careful stitched patch. So my paintings have those feelings in them, and it happened in a natural sort of way. So I didn't think about it at all. It wasn't intellectual, it wasn't conceptual, it was more all about the materials and the materials that I'm using. And when I paint on sails that were on the longest sea voyage in history, and I know those sails have a lot of very special vibes in them, and they're historic. Even if they're abstract, they're telling a story from the longest sea voyage in history. So material is much more important to me than the conceptual aspect of it.
So for me, I would say that the concept and the material are very much intertwined. I also paint on sails that already have a history and already have a story long before they come into my hands, into my studio, where I begin conceptualizing what I'm actually going to paint onto them. And then the subject matter is, not to repeat the word, but transcendental. So they really play into each other. The object of this worn sail that has this historical kind of, this whole life before it even came to me. I don't know where it's been. Maybe that sailor or wherever it was used, it went somewhere I'd never been before. But then I paint on top of it these figures that transcend their own bodies and their own limitations. So I feel that, having that extra, painting it on a sail just adds that extra dimension of going somewhere where you haven't gone before. Exploration, transcending your, limits, going where you never thought you'd go.
I totally agree with the idea of intertwine to both of them. Material can be itself of meaning and also the carrier of meaning. And so my next question is, how do collectors respond to that balance when making acquisition decisions?
Well, I think the collectors that are drawn to me, they see the work, and my story is a large part of what attracts them to my work. They might hear my story. They might have heard my story before they came to see the work. If a collector or a private dealer is introducing my work to a collector, they'll tell them my story. So the collector is drawn to the story of how the art was made. So I think that the collectors know the story and like the story and identify with the story if they want the art. And that's how the art is.
Those who collect my art or are drawn to the art or feel something, when I get any sort of visceral response, it's usually a process. I remember the last few times I actually did a visit. It's a process to introduce them to the work, because some of them don't quite understand right away that it's a sale. It's a whole process, and then they realize, oh, wait, what is this? And then learning about this material, and then it kind of uncovers this whole story of why I paint on the sails, where I've been with the sails, and why I paint these transcending figures on them. It's really kind of this uncovering process that really makes the collector fall in love with it and really identify. I think the collector will ultimately identify with this concept, why I paint these figures on sails, where the sails come from, and the importance of putting those two together, the cultural and historical importance of that. Ultimately, they'll relate to it. They'll see themselves in it. It's depicting something that they would like to do, they wish they could do, or they could see themselves doing in the future.
Thank you. And from what I just heard, so they can actually purchase both ways. by concepts itself. So like Maxine just said, they can start to learn and dig in more knowledge from it and start to see themselves inside of it. Yeah, that will work. And also what Reed just said, they are more curious about your personal experience and your story. So it works both ways and both fascinating to me.